This is from Isaiah 9:2-7. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined. For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests upon his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace.
Have you ever tried to teach somebody how to do something only by explaining it to them, not by showing them how to do it? You ever tried this? It's so much more difficult, right? It's so much easier to show somebody how to do it and then have them do it while you watch, right? And then to pass it and release them when they've got it down. Trying to explain something to somebody is like an exercise in futility. There is something about when you have a wisdom inside of you, when you know how to do something, it can be really challenging to try and explain that to somebody else. There are some things in life that are just better caught than taught, right? Some of my favorite experiences of this have been when I'm outdoors, when I'm camping or fishing or hiking, and something goes wrong. It's always when something goes wrong. That's when you really figure out the limitations of your ability to communicate. So there's all these situations that come up, and it's always when something goes wrong. As a pastor, I am very aware that people often come to me, not when life's going great, when life is not going great. And this is a very challenging moment when you say, okay, so, you know that thing you're so comfortable doing? So you're not going to do that because that's how you got here. Instead, you're going to do this other thing, which you probably haven't practiced very much and may not be comfortable with. That's what we're going to do right now. And it's a really tricky moment where they're like, I was sort of under the impression you could fix this. I can if you do what I'm telling you, which is not what anyone wants to hear at that moment, especially when life isn't going well. So as we've been going through this book, Practicing Faith, we are up to our final 2 chapters. And today we're talking about the practice of faith. Next week we're going to talk about thinking about the practice of faith. But today we're talking about the practice of faith. And I want to make my best sales pitch to you to be a person of faith when nothing is on the line or not very much is on the line, so that you are well practiced when life isn't going so great. I don't know if you're aware of this. Sometimes life can take some weird twists and turns. Sometimes life can be really unpredictable, and sometimes it throws up things at the most inconvenient times and really asks you to dig down deep and find resources that you didn't even know you had. One of the reasons I love doing church this way is because we are trying to work out together, when there's not much on the line, how to be in community as people of faith and to walk forward in a faith that will benefit us for the days ahead when they're both good and bad days, which we know there's going to be both. Right? I hope that's not a spoiler alert. There are good days coming and there are not good days ahead. Both. And so one of the things, I just wanted to talk about 3 different ways that this kind of exists in our culture. How many of you have heard of this 10,000 hour thing? Is that pretty common?
No, probably.
So there's just this thing that gets thrown around, like to be an expert in something or to have real mastery over something, you need to put 10,000 hours into it. That's a lot of hours. And so, and there's a debate about if it's really that high and blah, 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 right? But you'll hear it from time to time. Somebody will throw out 10,000 hours. And it means being an expert or having mastery over something. But I just want to say that this is actually a good conversation to have as people of faith, because the walk of faith is a long walk in the same direction. That's what the walk of faith is. And for some of you, this walk of faith has borne real fruit in your life. It has really benefited you. And for others of you, it hasn't quite lived up to what you hoped It hasn't made you maybe the type of person that you hoped you would be, or you're able to do it when life's going well, but when you get surprised by somebody, say, being a jerk or being a critic or life, the bottom falling out of you or it kicking you in the stomach, however you want to talk about it, you're actually surprised that as much of a person of faith as you can be when life's generally going well, it's shocking how you're not that great where the rubber meets the road, when the pressure's on, and you are disappointed in yourself. What happens is there's a religious shame that comes on you when you think, I'm a fraud. Oh, I can be nice, I can be a good person, I can believe, I can trust the Lord when not much is happening. But then when the pressure's on, all of a sudden I default to, whether it's your family of origin or your defense mechanisms or whatever it is, and you're disappointed in yourself. And you think, oh my gosh, I've put all of this time right into this walk of faith, and then when it was really on the line, I came up short. So I just want to say to you, welcome to the club. If you ever feel like you have let yourself down, or you haven't lived up to your own expectations, or that you haven't been a person of faith when it really mattered, we have a club. We meet every Sunday morning at 10:30, and you're more than welcome to join us. This is why we have to be a people of grace. There is no way forward except by grace. Look, it was God's grace that called us into this thing. It's God's grace that brought us into a new relationship with God. It's God's grace that transforms us to live a different way, and it will be God's grace that covers over the places where we fell short. It is grace all the way down. This is why we give grace to each other. Sometimes in our conversation, someone shares too much, or maybe they say something that they didn't mean to say, or they regret saying, or you wish they hadn't said. This is where grace covers. Sometimes in the hustle and bustle of the week, somebody doesn't get back to you, and you really wanted them to, or maybe they're pressuring you too much and not understanding that you just don't have time to deal with this right now. That's where grace comes in. It is by practicing being a community of faith that we get the 10,000 hours that lets us be experts, or to have mastery about how to live in relationship under the umbrella of grace. That's how we get the 10,000 hours. Because if you only do this 1 hour a week, it's going to take you forever to get the 10,000 hours. This is why we have to rub shoulders during the week. We have to sit across the table with people during the week. We need to reach out to people we haven't seen during the week. It's the only way you're going to get your 10,000 hours. It has to be done day in and day out. And that's where you really become seasoned and well-versed in being a person who lives in community under the umbrella of grace. Another analogy that we use in our culture is muscle memory. Like if there's something you haven't done in a long time, and then you go to do it, it's amazing how your muscles seem to have a memory in them where you don't have to think that hard. Like, for instance, if you and I were to go and do something that you used to do as a kid, but I've never done, and it's my first day of doing it, it's going to take me a long time because that learning curve is steep, and you'll be able, after maybe just a couple tries, to get right back in it. Right? That's a way that we can sort of talk about muscle memory. It's where the saying, it's like riding a bike comes from. Some of you haven't been on a bike in a while, but if you were to get on there, you might be surprised at how quickly it comes back to you. Or playing an instrument is another analogy. Or so many other things. And I just want to say, this is actually a really great analogy or a word picture for us to talk about faith. Faith is sort of a muscle, if you will. And I know this is like a really elementary analogy, but the more you use it, the stronger it gets. That's one side of it. But the other side is that once you are practiced and strong in it, even if you don't use it for a season, you will be shocked that it is waiting there for you when you need it. The muscle memory is there. So I wanted to introduce you. I've talked about this word a lot. It's one of my favorite words that's not English. I have a lot of favorite English words, like lunch. But this is one of my favorite non-English words. So the Greeks, is a Greek word. The Greeks had a number of concepts for wisdom. Some of them have translated into English, right? So we have theoria. That's a Greek word. How did that come into English? Theory. Techne is a different type of wisdom. How did that come into English? Technical, right? They have a number of ways that they talk about wisdom. This, unfortunately, is one of the Greek words that didn't migrate into English. We don't have an equivalent of this. And I find it really tragic because it's such a beautiful concept. So phronesis is a wisdom that's held in your body. It is a, what do you call it, muscle memory, or there's 10,000 hours. Phronesis is a wisdom that's down in your bones. It's not cognitive, it's not just intellectual, it's not abstract, right? It's not theoretical. It's down in your bones. So I want to say to you, people of God, you have a wisdom down inside of you that you may not even know how to access. You know things that you cannot explain to somebody else. This is phronesis. The scripture that Sarita read for us talked about light coming into darkness and all of the implications that the things that were low will be raised up and the things that are high will be brought down. That's a justice imagery. That those things which were covered in blood will be burned, fuel for the new life that we're going into. That there's this expectation that life can be a different way. So I want to say to you, if you are discouraged today, if you are without hope, if you are dismayed about the state of the world, we talked earlier about where on earth does peace need to come. If you are discouraged, if you are bewildered, if you are confused, I want to say to you, you're going to be fine. You have a wisdom down in your bones that will get you through. And if you don't believe me, stick with us. We will get through this together. In this room, there is enough wisdom, peace, grace, insight, and strength to change this city and change the world. You are wise beyond what you know. You are wise beyond what you know because you have been through stuff. You know how to persevere. You know how to get up the next morning. You know how to show up the next week. There is a wisdom and a strength down inside of you that we need. These are dark days, but the light's coming. We live in the shadowland, it feels like, but there's light on the horizon. You have a wisdom down inside of you that we need. You know when to be patient and let something pass, and when to speak a corrective word. You know when to let the storm pass and just hunker down, and when it's time to get to work. You know when something isn't bearing the fruit that you want, and it's time to double your efforts and maybe recruit some friends. This wisdom is down inside of you. It's in your bones. Some of you have walked a long road of faith, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for your faithfulness, and thank you for your faith-filledness. And as we continue to grow as a community, as we serve our world out there, and as we trade notes in here, by this multi-generational comparing of notes, we are all made better. Because you have a wisdom inside of you that you may not even know how to access. And so I want to bless you today. Will you let me pray for you? Spirit of the living God, Sophia, we cry out for wisdom in these days where we don't see a clear path ahead. Sometimes it feels very hopeless when we are frustrated and we ask for wisdom. Grandmother of us all, teach us how to love one another, to bring peace on earth and goodwill to all of your children. We need help. So whether it bubbles up from within us, whether we find it in the person we're sitting next to, or whether it comes in the divine presence, we open ourselves to wisdom for the road ahead. Please, we want to be people of faith. Teach us in these days to walk faithfully. In Christ's name.